This is the Tree of Life, Season 18, Chapter 2. In this episode, we will be discussing the importance of acquiescence and natural law in determining how and by whom a vessel is used during a substitution event. To begin, I must start off by saying that I am referring to natural law as a concept within a vacuum, stripped of the social and theological undertones of historical definitions. When I am referring to natural law, what I am discussing are two forms of it. First, a form of natural law which is developed by an assertion which is hierarchical, that is, an assertion to authority. And second, a form of natural law which is developed by an assertion of tautology. In the first case, the assertion is essentially that what I call the governing authority has deemed some action is good, therefore because it is good, it is natural, therefore you should acquiesce to it. The second form of natural law is tautological, which asserts essentially that because the in-group does such and such action, it is natural, therefore it is good, therefore you should submit to it. These two forms of natural law overlap in conventionality. That is, they are not entirely distinct forms of acquiescence. Conventionality is thus how these two forms of natural law manifest in groups. Both maintain a form of governing authority. But in the first case, that governing authority is some outgroup, which can be an immanent subject, whereas in the second it is the in-group itself. Now, to return to our discussion of the bodily rhythms or cycles, in any posture or rhythm, there is a natural rhythm. This natural rhythm reflects the shift from one posture to another through each movement, as the attention shifts to some object, then back to the rhythm itself. Discomfort is followed by a shift, marking the high point of the attention being on the rhythm self-consciously, the shift being the movement which shifts the attention back to some object. When there is negation prior to the flipping of phase, when the attention acting as negation on the bodily rhythm prolongs the phase flip, we see the transformation of that digital structure corresponding to the rhythm to an analog one. Nevertheless, the shifting of the attention from some object back to the rhythm, manifesting as negation, entails the substitution event. It is only in the prolongation of that negation that we see a transitionary period which permits the bifurcation of perception. In the movements corresponding to a shifting of phase, are determined the temporal coordinates of the substitution events so indicated. Thus, when, for example, these movements reflect ritual, that is, a complex pattern of movements or rhythms, they represent a separated conventionality associated with either a form of natural law. Typically, these rituals are designated by a governing authority, which is hierarchical. However, that need not necessarily be the case. Thus, in ritual, the movements or rhythms develop their own particular rhythm of naturalness. Likewise, the temporal coordinates associated with substitution events within a tautological natural law are determined by the conventionality of the in-group itself, as the governing authority. We saw that in Season 17, Chapter 8. Acquiescence to an impulse without expression results in substitution of another consciousness within that vessel whilst the first is displaced temporally and spatially. Thus, it is important to note that it is the acquiescence itself which adheres to the vessel, regardless of the actual action of the self-conscious subject. Thus, it is possible to see that acquiescence determines the movement of a digital consciousness from one vessel to the next, in accordance with the governing authority of that form of natural law. That's the end of the podcast for today.